Welcome, everybody, to the Thin Line. And this is SOS, and I'm here with the one and the only,
the Messy Jessie. And you guys, we are here, episode 4. I first want to say thank you to everybody who is, supporting us, liking us, sharing us, getting the word out. I just want to say that at first. Much love and appreciation to everybody. And yeah, SOS, you have something that you need to say?
I do. We have a disclaimer that we have to say on our show now, so bear with us. But welcome to the Thin Line. The conversations on our podcast do not reflect the opinions of any specific agency or network. They are the views of our hosts and our guests. Any persons and situations discussed may be fictional, and the names and places and events may be changed, and is for entertainment purposes only. This show is rated explicit, and viewer or listener discretion is advised. And thank you. We are here with our guest, Austin. Hey, Austin.
Hi,
how's
Austin.
it going, guys?
Good.
And Austin,
oh
my gosh, you sent me some photos that we're going to show during the show, and you, people don't think of what you did as first response, but you really are. So
yeah, of course.
Explain your job.
So when you guys get in, like if someone were to get into an accident, not everybody knows someone that has a truck with a trailer, obviously. So next best thing would be to have law enforcement reach out to us, and we would come pick up your vehicles.
Okay. And you responded to like a variety of wrecks, and
yes,
like everywhere, right?
Yeah, so everywhere that I responded to was within Jerome County, and it's a fairly large area. And so it's, with being an only driver to respond to that area, we're supposed to have a 30-minute ETA, but there's some areas where it would take me at least 45 minutes to get to.
Sure. And so I can imagine that some of the wrecks that you get to, maybe the ambulance crew, the EMS, they're still on scene. They're still trying to clear the scene when you roll on it. So you're not only seeing the aftermath of what happened, but sometimes you're seeing response.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And sometimes there's been 2 or 3 times where I've arrived on scene where paramedics hadn't even arrived. They were assisting other patients with other calls, and by the time we got there, granted, our response time was 5 minutes compared to their like 6 minutes, because the accident would have happened like right around the corner from where our trucks were stationed.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You told me before we started, and sorry, Messy Jessie, did I step on you?
No.
Okay.
I'm little. There's nothing to step on.
So you told me before we got on the air of a situation where a victim in an accident was actually handed a fire extinguisher and told to, what happened?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So someone failed to yield at a stop sign, and a dump truck ended up going into the side of a semi-trailer. And when that happened, the passenger was entrapped. They were basically trapped inside of the cab. They couldn't get out, and nobody could help them get out because fire department wasn't on scene with jaws of life. So
was that
they basically told her. Yeah, I believe so.
I'm going to show that picture. I did take out identifying information.
Yeah, of course.
Vehicles and the troopers involved, but this is the accident, and just horrific.
Lanterns.
I know. Can you believe that? I can't even imagine that.
So the driver got out of the vehicle, was able to get out of the truck, but he couldn't get in. Yeah, the one, no. So the other semi that went into the side.
One right underneath the trailer.
Yeah, so the driver of that one was able to get out, but he couldn't get to the passenger side to open the door because the door was basically jammed shut. It
Okay.
was so mangled that they couldn't open the door at all. So the ISP officers basically handed the victim a fire extinguisher and said, the truck's on fire. If at all reason you see flames, put the flames out.
I can't even imagine how terrifying.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't even imagine being that victim. And like, I would be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
You want me to do what? Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
because
And
you don't
the-
think that, it's like you were
Yeah.
like, I need to get out of here,
Yeah,
and
and sometimes so I was a part of an accident myself with my wife, and we were on our way down out of the mountains. And last thing I remember was the speedometer said it was 55, 60 miles an hour. Granted, I was making poor decisions that night, but I learned from them, and from that moment forward, I'm almost 30 years old, and I've got a clean driving record. No DUIs, no speeding tickets, no nothing. So knock on wood, because I don't want anything, because insurance is really cheap.
yeah, right.
Well,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So when your accident, I mean, being an accident victim yourself, you said you guys went over like a cliff or something, and
So off to the left of off to the left of the car was a 50-foot ravine, and then off to the right was basically a mountain cliff. And instead of going down into the ravine, we ended up going around a curve and went up into the mountain, thankfully. And when we
oh,
went up into the mountain, we went end over end and then over, basically end over end. So we rolled it sideways and then end over end.
Oh my gosh.
so not only do
Yeah.
you deal with accidents, then you become an accident victim. Did you guys were able to get out of the vehicle on your own?
Yeah. Yeah. We were able to get out just fine. Um, Back when I was 18, I was involved in a head-on collision, and I wasn't able to get out of the vehicle on the driver's side. I had to go out the passenger door. So
Right.
So that's, yeah. I was just thinking, it's like amazing that, you guys are still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for two, it kind of gives you an advantage when you're on scene, because then you can empathize with the victim and what they're going through.
So that image there is actually a Chevy Impala that was rear-ended on the interstate by a semi.
Oh my Lanta.
And I can't. Did people walk away from this? I mean, did they? No, I was going to say,
No.
there's no way.
No, nobody walked away. That was a very tragic one.
Oh, that's just terrible. And you pass by, and everybody slows down, and you look at these, and you're the guys that are dealing with it. You have the troopers on scene, EMS, fire, and you guys, and that's really it.
And also
that's it.
Sometimes when it's on the interstate, we do have Idaho Transportation Department out on scene. They don't like us to close the road down. Yes, they will show up on scene depending on the severity of the accident.
Okay, so is it like I don't know. I have an aviation background, so is it kind of like NTSB where they have to come out and collect data
to assess
what are they doing?
Yeah, so ITD. So I believe I sent you a picture of a semi that the cab was all mangled up. That one, ITD actually ended up having to come out to inspect the guardrail because the semi had nailed the guardrail and rolled.
I will show that one right now. I
And
think
those are pretty expensive.
Is this the one?
To replace?
Yep, that is the one.
Geez.
So he was fully loaded with onions. And as you can see, kind of in the top right, the guardrail's kind of mangled up. Yep, right up in through there.
My goodness.
So the driver of that one actually walked away, and he called the tow line within, I want to say, 6 hours of the accident, so he can get to see if he can get his personal belongings out of the truck.
There
know,
is definitely angels watching over these people.
Yeah.
The ones that
exactly
Yeah.
what I was going to say. Angels on his shoulder, Jess.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
That's
he
a
literally,
reason why this man is alive, you know?
yeah. So right here, he had a U-shaped scratch on his forehead, and it was just the smallest U shape, and it was just impressive.
Wow, that is
So
crazy.
how do you, I mean, we have some more other pictures, so we can go ahead and share some of those while we're let me get to this one here. Sorry, it takes me a minute to get through all these screens. I bought all this fancy equipment so that I could have all of these monitors going, so it's easier to share screens when we're doing these. And I plugged it all in tonight and it doesn't work. So I'm like, what? So back to the drawing board, but let me share this one here. What happened in this event?
Oh,
So this one actually had 3 teenagers in the vehicle. They all walked away.
Oh.
I want to say speed was a factor in this one. And they were on their lunch break on the way back to the high school, and they ended up coming up to a trucking company's lot, and someone pulled out right in front of them as they're doing, I think they were estimated to be doing 60 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
These are pictures that should be shown to kids who are learning to drive.
Well,
Exactly.
you know, I would say so, but did you guys in driver's ed, did you watch Blood on the Asphalt? I think it's what it was called when I was in.
So I never
believe
took
I remember
driver's
that.
ed.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So I think it was called Blood on the Asphalt, and it didn't make a shred of difference because kids
Yeah.
think they're invincible, like they're never
Yeah.
gonna die. This is another.
So
That
was there ever a time in your career that you I mean, God hope not, but you ever came close to where people are not moving over for an accident? People move over. Like, be respectful, you know?
Yeah, so I've gone to multiple calls with my dad where we had to go pick up a semi that had broke down on the side of the interstate. And when you tow a semi, yep, usually it's the right thing to do is to drop the drive line so it doesn't cause more damage. Well, I remember being underneath the semi with my dad removing the drive line, and I had a hat on just like this one, and laying underneath the semi. 2 semis came blowing right past us, and we're laying there. My hat got ripped off of my head and went right underneath one of the semis and was in the middle of the interstate.
I can't. That's why there's a law. There's a law to slow down and move over.
Exactly,
right?
and I can't emphasize enough on that. Like, if people would do that, there'd be a lot less deaths.
You know what's interesting is that people don't understand. Maybe I take defensive driving every year. It's part of what I do for work, and
of course.
You steer the direction you're looking. So if you're looking at a wreck, you're usually steering into the direction you're looking. And it's nuts. So this looks like a minivan.
So
it was a Dodge minivan.
Yeah, it was a Dodge Grand Caravan that ended up sideswiping a semi from avoiding a head-on collision on the interstate with a wrong-way driver.
Oh my God.
And I don't know. I hope that everybody survived that was in it. I'm not 100% sure. Me and my dad picked up 3 different vehicles from that scene because of how bad it was.
Wow, like everybody needs to pay attention. Start paying attention to what's going on the road and around you.
Drive sober. That's a lot of the issue.
Okay, so this one here looks like it's full of potatoes. Let me.
Yes. So this one. Yep. So
let's see. There we go.
I was actually out on scene with the potato truck for a total of, I want to say it was 16 hours that we were out on scene cleaning up.
Was this recent in the last year?
Yes, this was.
Oh gosh.
It was within, I want to say at least 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay, so it was 3 or 4 years ago. This wasn't within the last year where there was a fatality. This is
No. So everybody
okay.
walked away from this one.
Gosh, you
So
look at the stuff and go, how?
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and
I don't know.
Well, you look at
So
the
with this
semis
one,
too. Like they're
yeah.
huge.
So in the
Right.
middle, about where, yeah. So right there, that part of the cab should be attached to the frame, which is where the gas tanks are.
Oh my
So that should be down all a little bit more. Yeah, right in through there is where that cab should be sitting.
That's bananas.
Yeah, he ended
Wow.
up rear-ending another semi that had a flatbed trailer that was loaded with lumber for a house.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
So
this
how
is
do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with these calls?
So a lot of times you don't know what to expect. So you don't know. Dispatch will give you a call and say, "Hey, there's an accident, heavily front end damage or side damage, or it's on its roof, or was involved in a rollover or something." That's all they really say. So with getting some description, it's nice, but you still like that one. All we
I
were
mean,
told was it was involved in a rollover.
oh
It
You
was in a
can't even tell what
rollover
it
and
is.
also hit a pole. Yeah, it was a Nissan Altima.
Oh my
oh,
hell.
That guy
good
actually walked
night.
away, and I spoke with someone that talked to the driver, and he said that he tried to open his door wouldn't open, and he remembered that he had a sunroof, so he went to go push on the sunroof, and when he went to push on the sunroof, there was no roof. So all he did was stand up and stepped out of the car, literally stepped out of the car.
Unbelievable.
That is
Yep.
crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it just blows my mind.
Yeah. So are you guys also like CPR certified in first aid? So if you had to go out there
So
and help first responders?
we can have, so it's optional. It's not mandatory. We don't
Mm-hmm.
really, so 90% of the time when we show up on scene, like I said, paramedics have already shown up and left. The only ones that are still on scene are usually fire and police. And
Okay.
so fire is usually there just to make sure there's no spillage from any fluids or anything, make sure there's
Right.
nothing going to spark up from the fuel and the battery and stuff. So,
Yeah.
but after we get on scene at that point, then fire department usually takes off, and then law enforcement asks if we want them to stick around or not. But
Yeah.
it's very slim chances that we actually see the victims if they go to the hospital. If they're transported to the hospital via ambulance, then we won't see the victims until at least the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine just trying to do the cleanup even after, unfortunately, like a fatality.
Yeah,
I don't think I could.
it's really rough. So there's one that I went to in Bliss. It was on the Bliss grade, and it was a fatality. And I wasn't told it was a fatality, and so I was just told that it was an accident on the grade.
Mhm.
And I asked my wife if she wanted to go with me because she was at home, and she said sure. So we rolled up on scene, and after we got on scene, I get out of the truck. So I told her to wait here for a minute. I get out, and the officer walks up and he said this was a fatality, so make sure you glove up. And
Yes.
granted, yeah, it was sprinkling a little bit with rain, but when I heard that it was a fatality, I told my wife, "Hey, it's a fatality. Just stay in the truck." She's not one to be a part of the action. She likes to
Yeah.
have her moment.
Yeah. I
so she,
understand.
so she got out and helped me, but I told her, as like, just watch where you step. You know, as soon as we get home, strip your clothes down, get straight in the shower immediately. No ifs, ands, or buts. We had Germex on the truck we had
Like Tyvek suits. Did you suit up?
no, we never suited up. We just always had to have gloves on.
Oh, I
And
see.
if we ever got stuff on our clothes, we usually just went home and threw them away Instead of washing them, we just threw them away and just went and got new clothes.
Yeah.
I don't know how many pairs of pants I went through.
Right. And it's crazy because you don't think that.
Yeah, exactly.
From both of your standpoints, then how, because she's not somebody who dealt with this on a daily basis, how did she deal with the aftermath of that?
So I kind of guided her away from the areas to clean up, for that way she wouldn't have to see it, because I didn't want her to. I tried to do everything that I could to keep her from seeing stuff like that, because I didn't. She's not from a family that grew up around stuff like that. So it's almost like, I don't want to say she was sheltered as a child, but she was well taken care of.
Well, I would hope that most people are a little sheltered, and don't have to face that. I mean, you dealt with it because this was your dad's business. So you grew up. Stepdad, I'm sorry. And you grew up with this. So you grew up in this business, right?
Yeah. And so my stepdad came into the picture in 2008, and I was about 16 when I started going on calls with him. And so I just turned 29 in January. So
you're still a baby. But
still just a young pup.
How do you deal with it? Are you still doing this?
No, I'm not. Once the company shut down, I kind of stepped back from it for a little bit, just to take back my sleep schedule, because my sleeping schedule was so out of whack. I was working 24/7. So I was always on call.
Yeah.
There's times where I went 2-3 days without any sleep.
That's not healthy.
Yeah, it's rough, but caffeine was our friend.
Caffeine was friends, and so was Monsters.
Yep. Monsters, Red Bulls.
How did you process everything that you saw on a daily basis?
So I would take pictures of it and just tell myself everybody walked away from it. If it was a fatality and we had arrived on scene before paramedics and the coroner showed up, then that was a different story. It's rough reliving those moments. And when I relive them, it's usually in a dream. And it's rough to have a night terror like that and relive it over and over again. And I think I have at least one nightmare a month from it.
I was going to ask if you still do, and you do.
Yeah, I still, occasionally, they're not as bad as time's gone on, because I'm not seeing all the debris, I guess, would be the way to put it. So it's a lot easier now than before. If I had to go to, say, drive into Twin Falls, it would take me at least 30 minutes. I'd always throw my seatbelt on. If I went down to the gas station just around the corner, 2 blocks away, whatever. I always tell my wife that if you're going to be in the car for longer than 2 minutes, wear your seatbelt. It doesn't matter. In fact, you should wear your seatbelt constantly. A lot of the newer vehicles nowadays actually like this feature. Before you can even put the vehicle in drive, you have to have your seatbelt on.
Really?
Yes, it is a very nice feature.
Wow. So, and I know there's statistics to back this up everywhere, and you will always find the anomaly of the person who wasn't belted and they lived, and and they would have died had they been seat belted. But I think most accidents, the person who's wearing the seatbelt is going to walk away, not necessarily walk away, but live. There are some that
it's got its, so speed is a major factor. I don't know how law enforcement determines all of that. I'm not familiar with it, but
it's not fun. Just FYI.
Yeah, I can imagine. But so there's some accidents where I've gotten on scene, and I've asked officers, like, how fast were they going? We don't know. We're still trying to determine that. There's been times where people, I'm not sure if I sent an image of it over to you. It was I want to say it was like a green SUV.
No.
Dang. Yeah, so that one what happened, it was in town. And so the driver of the vehicle that caused the accident, we're not sure if he was on drugs or what, but he was doing an excessive speed through town in Jerome and ended up sideswiping a or it was a pickup hauling a horse trailer,
Oh,
and sideswiped the pickup because they were turning right in front of him and basically T-boned him. And granted, he didn't survive. He did fight for a little bit because bystanders helped get him out of the car, and he was still conscious when he got out. But as soon as they got him out on the ground, then that was it. So
He expired.
so speed and inattentive driving, like it seems to be
yeah,
the two big things. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, most cars now have hand-free devices, but you still find yourself looking at your phone. I
yeah,
still do it,
and
and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, nope, just leave that phone alone.
yeah,
You know,
and I'm
it's crazy.
yeah, I'm terrible about that as well. I The wife will play around on her phone all the time when she's driving, and I always get after her for it and tell her, "Hey, put your phone down, focus on driving. It's not okay." And
Mhm,
she'll do it, and then it's vice versa with me and her. But I
mhm,
always play music when I'm driving. I like listening to music,
mhm.
and so
Yeah.
I'll flip through songs on my phone, but then I usually just put my phone back down, or I'll use my watch, and because it's just right there next to the steering wheel, I don't have to take my eyes very far away from the road.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I was with someone recently, and he was he's pretty bad about reading and doing all kinds of stuff on his phone while he's driving, and I was counting how many seconds his eyes were off the road. And then I'd go,
Yeah.
yeah, hey, it's like, hey,
It's
yeah,
watch
only
what?
like
Hey,
6
I'm like,
seconds.
I'm my butt's in this car. I don't care
exactly,
what you're doing when you're alone, but I'm in this vehicle. So can
Yeah.
we just,
exactly.
and I have a lot of friends, they're just constantly just surfing the whole time they're driving. I'm like, my God, I know that the phone is an addictive device. It really is. And they've
Mhm.
done all kinds of studies now, and they show how addictive it is. Like
Yeah,
you
it
can't,
is.
it's terrible, but we've got to do something to end this, because
Yeah.
it's not getting any better. And we upped our speed limit to 80. So now we're going 90 because no one's going 80. So now we're going 90 with a
Yeah,
phone. I'm like,
yeah,
Yeah.
oh my
exactly.
God. The distance
Yeah.
you're closing at 90 miles an hour is bananas.
Yeah.
Especially on a
And
semi that's doing 70, 75. Like that speed
right.
difference, you
Well,
can gain on
and
a semi
they're
so
going a
fast.
lot faster than their speed limits too. And they're
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
how much do they weigh?
a lot.
at
Like
least
80,000 pounds or more.
50,000. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends
And
on the
so
load.
they're supposed
yep,
to be going like 75 or whatever it is. That's not going to save anybody. 75 with 80,000 pounds?
I
No,
mean, you can't
yeah.
stop on a
They're
dime. That's one thing
no.
my dad
yeah,
would say.
yeah.
And
Especially the semis, you can never stop on a dime with them. You
Yeah.
have to
so
give
you
Yeah.
yourself enough time.
did you, and it's not meant as a negative comment, but did you ever seek counseling for stuff that you've seen, or did you just process it somehow yourself?
I I somehow processed it myself.
Okay.
I I was always given the opportunity to talk to someone about it,
Okay.
and I I found that if I went home and talked to my wife about it, if she didn't go out on the call with me, if I just went home and talked to her, the best thing that I always did was gave her a hug and a kiss every time I got home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Then
awesome.
that's when she knew that you had
Yep,
a bad one.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she knew. And there'd be times where and I still do it to this day. I'll zone out. Like I'll just completely, like I'll look like I'm on autopilot. Like my body's there, but mentally I'm not. I'm completely checked out. And
Yeah.
it's not that I'm having a flashback. It's just trying to process some scenarios that could have been different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is a normal, I wouldn't say normal, but that is a time and time response to any responders. That
Yep.
is basically how they process things. They separate themselves from the feeling. You go numb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's like you
you
go
will.
numb. And then until you get on the other side of what you're trying to deal with, there's nothing.
Yeah. And so growing up, I was one of the baby child that whenever I got hurt, I would just start bawling and crying. So I was a big softie.
So
But
you were a little brother, maybe?
so I
Little
was
baby
actually
brother.
no, I'm the oldest of three.
Oh,
But
well, that's
yeah,
good.
yeah. So, and granted, they're step siblings, but they're still awesome
Right.
Yeah.
siblings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so with growing up with them, my brother was never really around. He lives in Florida, but my sister was always around. And growing up with her helped a lot because we didn't really bond with each other. We didn't really get along the greatest, but which brother and sister really do?
No.
Yeah, I gave
not too
mine a
many.
bloody nose, so it's okay.
Exactly.
Oh, wait. I mean, he gave me a bloody nose over pizza.
Wait a minute.
That's the
Is
truth.
this evidence? Yeah. So processing it, you kind of did a whole self-processing thing, and your wife
Yeah,
worked through those issues.
yeah, and whenever I had the rough ones, I come home, give her a kiss, and I usually just jumped on some video games. And using video games as a decompression tool, it kind of helped. Granted, some of them aren't the best video games out there, but there are some that will help with coping and processing stuff.
I am the same way. I do that.
Yep.
That's how I escape my reality.
Yep. Mine's a motorcycle.
You were to give, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I say I'm not a gamer, so I don't know. Yeah, I play like, yeah, it's not really. Anyway, so if you were to give a piece of advice to somebody coming into this line of work,
Don't do it.
well, people, yeah, we need them, right? So
Yeah, we do need them. They are a key source to a community. They do help clean up the area from an accident, and
yeah,
without them, there'd be piles of cars just sitting everywhere and anywhere, causing more accidents.
We can't look like Mad Max out here, so we have to have people who are responding to these scenes. But do you recommend that they look into some kind of trauma therapy or something
It's
to help
just
working
some
out,
sort of therapy.
something?
Yeah, just any sort of therapy or getting outdoors and spending time with family. Always
Yeah.
telling someone that you love them, regardless of who it is. You know, you never know what could happen tomorrow.
Right.
Like my wife's at work right now, and if I wouldn't have said I loved her this morning when she left for work and she got in an accident on the way home, I wouldn't have had that sense of feeling that we both loved each other before she left for work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like what you said too about getting outside, because I think people forget that connection with being the outside. Whether you're taking
nature.
a walk around your neighborhood or a walk in the park or taking your dog out to play ball or whatever it is, being outside, decompressing from electronics is huge to let your mind, your pulse, and your heart rate and everything start calming down.
Yeah, exactly. I always take at least 10 minutes out of my day just to set my phone down. It should be longer, but I give it 10 minutes just because it's really all the time I have away from it. But I usually take about 10 minutes and just decompress, and I'll quit looking at my phone and I won't look at a screen at all. I'll go outside and just look at the trees or look at the backyard, watch the dog play in the yard, something.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm assuming that you probably develop pretty close relationships with a lot of the troopers and police force that like the Jerome Police Department. Just shout out to them. They have the best Facebook site I have ever seen in my life. Those guys they're the funniest guys. They are so hilarious. But
they are.
We have a good friend that works over there, and he's amazing. So
the hats off to those guys. I crack up every time they post. But could you tell if like a rookie was having a hard time? Were you able to develop bonds close enough to say, to offer any advice to them?
Not really. They kind of kept to themselves. I mean, we would have small talk with each other, but we never really created a bond. Like
Right.
I never hung out with them outside of work, as you would put it.
Yeah.
And so it was when we were on scene, yeah, we would have our small talk and we would have our moments, and depending on the severity, if it was a driver's arrest or an accident, we would sit there and I guess the term would be to bull crap with each other. Would be the best way to put it.
Yeah. I know you were trying to
Yeah.
follow YouTube guidance.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow that one. That one's really hard. But
you're doing an amazing job, Austin. So
yeah, we're trying to. We basically would sit there with each other for about 15 minutes at most, just have small talk, see how we were doing, see if they were being busy or things were busy for us, and vice versa. But one thing that I'd noticed is you never said that magic word. Even in the towing service, you never say that magic word.
It starts with a Q.
Yeah.
Yep. You never say that word.
And
it's almost like Super Troopers and shenanigans.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, in the aviation world, we never said it's a good, boy, it's a good day today. It's an easy day today, a good day to fly. You say it's a good day to fly, but you would never, wow, it's quiet today. Because that's what we would do. You do that, and then all of a sudden all hell would break loose in the tower. And it was like, what? Yeah. So always, it's like a rookie throwing their hat on the bed. Like, no, as soon as they go to say it.
Yep, exactly.
Or the full moon thing. So do you believe in the full moon thing? Have you ever just been so busy on a full moon and you're like, this thing is really real?
So not necessarily business wise, but the outcomes were the worst on full moons.
Wow. Yeah.
So a lot of accidents that I'd gone to as the nights went on with full moons, as the moon would start showing and appearing, the worse the accidents were getting. So they would start out with like fender benders and then end up being rollovers, fatalities, and stuff like that, or head-ons, or a motorcycle got hit on the interstate or something weird.
That is crazy.
Sorry, yawning because I get up at 4, but sorry, that was completely involuntary. Yeah, I never thought I knew. I know it's busier because my mom was also law enforcement for all these years and retired through it, and I knew it was busier, but I never put 2 and 2 that the severity was worse.
Yeah, and I don't know how emergency room doctors do it for coping, but for us, it's just full moons. You can sense when you start having a full moon coming close up in the season or in the month.
Yep, and we have a blood moon coming up, so this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, it's funny that I've read some professional papers, research papers and professional papers done that are peer reviewed that say there's no correlation between behavior, full moon and accidents, full moon and busier police work, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, one of them was done in Salt Lake City too. And they said there's no
where do you get your statistics?
They said it's actually less crime on a full moon and during a bright moon because people are more likely to be seen outside. So crime drops. But I'm like, there's got to be something they're missing. They did a study here in Salt Lake and they did a study over in England, and they both confirmed. They said no correlation. I'm like, you ask any doctor in the ER, you ask any cop, You ask anybody who's a first response, and they're going to tell
Dispatch.
you it goes
You ask
crazy.
them.
Dispatch. It goes crazy in a full moon.
Yeah, full moons are crazy. Around here, it's things start getting nuts.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just Idaho. I don't know. But no, it's
the
not. It's
potatoes.
not, because I noticed.
It's
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So
Yeah.
really quick, first of all, I wanted to say this has been an awesome episode because it definitely enlightens me on what you guys do. Because, when we're driving by and we see an accident and there's the tow guy, we don't realize what you guys are subject to.
Yeah.
And, so this has definitely opened my eyes a lot, because you guys are the ones that are out there cleaning up the mess, and seeing the mangled cars and going, holy crap, I hope this person made it,
Yeah.
And then having that realization too that they didn't, and you're like, how do you, try to figure out how to process that. And second, what would you, I know that you've said it before, but what advice would you give to all of our listeners? If there's one piece of advice that you would give, what would that be?
Don't bottle it in. That's the only thing. Find someone close to you that you love near and dear and just share everything with. Share your feelings, share how you're feeling, share everything that's on your mind about the situation. It helps you process it in more ways than one. Like it helps make it easier to process. It'll help you with reassurance that everything's okay. It's when I mentioned earlier about my hat getting blown off my head, it was scary. That was really eye-opening. I've never had to experience that in my life, and it was real eye-opening. So from that moment, I always told my wife, whenever I went out on a call, I always told her before I left the house, I love you. I'll see you when I get back. So
and that's super important to have that support there.
Yeah, exactly. Having someone there to talk to about what you've seen and just experience what you felt while you were on scene. If it was serious enough that there was a fatality, I've been on a total of at least 8 fatality calls, and each one, they're not easy to get through. It's not easy to be able to go up on the scene and get through it. It's not easy. It's hard. And sometimes just talking to someone afterwards is a tremendous help.
Yeah. And that stretch of road, where I'm thinking is terrible.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
So I'm basically in between Burley and Wendell for the I-84. That whole stretch is Jerome County.
Yeah.
And then there's Highway 25. So
that's the section they're doing all of the road work on right now as well, too.
So I-84, in between Twin Falls and Jerome, they're redoing the interchange at the Jerome exit, and it's been a progress.
And people are just going so fast through there. I was through there just a few weeks ago, and it's crazy. Nobody's the slowing down. I
feel like to minimize the the accidents that they've had, because I know of for a fact since they've had the construction, there has been at least 5 accidents, 2 of which were fatalities. So if they would slow the traffic down through there, I bet you accidents would be a lot less. They wouldn't happen as often.
Maybe not be as severe. Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. The Autobahn is not a limitless road anymore. That ought to teach you something, because in Germany, the Autobahn was no speed limit forever. And there was so many fatalities that they finally put a speed limit on it. From what I understand from friends that were stationed over there, now it has a speed limit on it because people were just in the modern cars. That it's just
Yeah, some cars just aren't meant to go those speeds. And
Right.
Yeah.
I, speed is a key factor. Just
Yeah.
if everybody would just slow down, and if you're running late, you should have left 5 minutes before.
Yeah,
You
just
shouldn't have
run
taken
late.
that extra. Yeah,
Apologize
don't
when you
run. Yeah,
Yeah.
just make sure you're
Well,
doing the speed limit to get there safely.
thank you so much, Austin. Austin, we really
Thank
appreciate
you.
the fact that you came on here, that you reached out, because I didn't
Yeah.
even have this line of work on my radar when we started the show, and you reached out, and I'm like, holy moly, yeah, this is you fit right in here, because you're dealing with the crisis constantly, and I hope that you continue to heal. I hope that the nightmares continue to dwindle. I think at some point we do process it and they start going down.
Yeah, I don't think they'll dwindle down that much, as I'm thinking about trying to get back into it again.
Oh
Because
no.
it's just, yeah, the thrill and the rush and the excitement from seeing it. It's,
Yeah, adrenaline junkie,
Yeah.
huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
So,
But you'll be able to help people process that of
Yeah,
yeah,
younger
exactly. And
generation
yeah,
that tries to come in.
you bet.
exactly.
And we'd like to have you back on the show some point.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah,
get
of course, I'd love to.
get back into it and tell us how you're processing getting back into it, reach
Yeah.
out to us, and if you don't hear from us first, reach out to me again and say, hey man, I'm back into this. And because that discussion of, now you've had some time away from it and you're getting back into it, how does that affect
Yeah.
PTSD from the events? Is it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I that's something that sometimes people step away from the police force for a little time, and maybe they change to a different force, they get back into it. So these are things that people need to understand how it can affect them. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
cool. Well,
But,
thanks everybody.
Yeah. And that was our show. We'll have episode 5 next week. We'll have a special guest. And so, yeah, everybody, thank you so much again for following us on the Thin Line. And we'll have our contact information in the show notes. And thank you guys for all that you do. God bless you.
Yep. Thank you.